of all, thank you guys again for joining. And Nilesh and I have been at this for, about 5 years now. And we're just taking what we learned from building Marketo and our other collective data experiences and really trying to apply them to finally solve some of the most complex problems that deliver true value to our businesses, ourselves included. And we're trying to do all of this at the fraction of the cost and much faster than what was previously possible. So we're very proud of the customers on this page, both small, large, multi-industry, technical, non-technical, that have entrusted us to help them, with their business and to make them more efficient while they prepare for this yet unknown impacts of AI to their own businesses. And so, I guess next slide there, Hassan. Yeah. So one of the problems, we set out to solve with Syncari was we saw so many data warehouse, CDP, and MDM projects, failing or not being fully realized in businesses. So, and that included at Marketo when we were adding analytics to our platform, that it was super hard and super time consuming to do. And now, I'm relatively certain that most people out there have a CDP in kit form or otherwise, a data warehouse lakes, yes, and then even last generation MDM platforms. But I'm equally certain that many of you are not getting the true value from these platforms that you were expecting. And as a result, you're probably seeing some high, TCO costs as a result. And Alesh and I look at this, and he's going to talk about this a little bit later, but our best guess was that this was happening because of focus. At the end of the day, IT was hyper-focused on creating, a governed data layer with the tech stack that they were going after, while the business users are focused on cross-domain process and data. And, the businesses tended to focus on wanting to have cleaner, complete data across all the systems that they use every day, where a lot of the stuff that we were seeing was, more head-end or data warehouse sort of oriented. And, we wanted to change that. And Alesh and I, when we started the company, we're going like, look, some of the problems we're seeing in businesses is that there's no connective tissue between the systems they use every day and wherever they've decided to culminate the data that they're calling their 360 data. And and so that brings to the next point, is this achieving this elusive customer 360 that isn't centralized in some head-end warehouse, but is distributed and unified across the systems that people are using every day. Those are the things that we sort of saw. So so we saw that MDM was sort of heading in the right direction. A little factoid about Syncari: we initially came out to sort of be a next-gen MDM, but when we came out, obviously MDM was suffering some hits, as a result of some of the things we're talking about here today. And so we tried to stay away from it initially, but the more we were getting closer to IT and enterprise companies, the more they kept telling us, hey, you guys sound like an MDM on steroids or MDM plus plus. So we said, like, you know what, why are we bucking this? So we really are a next generation, MDM platform that is in the market now. And so I think one of the other things that we saw with MDM is, although it was heading in the right direction, it wasn't really fully connected to the end systems. And they had, very rigid data models and were very complex. Business users and IT couldn't work together to solve the problems that they needed. So it's no wonder that Gartner keeps telling us, in the industry, that 75% of these MDM programs fail. And we believe that this is happening because of, the things that we just talked about, where there wasn't really a single place that had a control plane and a data plane in one platform that was low code, no code, where business users and IT users can collaborate on until now. And so if you can go to the next slide there, Hassan, I'd appreciate it. Yeah, so we fundamentally believe that there's an entirely better way of doing all of this. So besides all the other amazing capabilities we have in our platform, one of the things that have done is to combine that unified governed data layer that IT needs with the cross-domain process layer that the business users want in order to run their businesses, in order to get to more unified capabilities in their business. So what's the so what? So for us, it's very simple. It's like, imagine if each of your reps could close 1 or 2 extra deals a month by focusing on the most important accounts and opportunities that are relevant to that show, propensity to close and things like that. That would be interesting to you, I would imagine. It is to us, and that's kind of what we work on all the time here at Syncari to try and get better at. But one of the issues, I guess one of the issues that we created by doing this was we have these siloed, so we went off and bought a bunch of SaaS applications for the market from the market, and each one of these siloed domains became authoritative for some of the business processes in the organization. And for many of the things that they do themselves, for example, sending email campaigns out of marketing and sending those messages out of there, and sales stage progression and CRM and customer invoicing in your ERP. All those are fundamentally important workflows that need to be in these siloed data pieces, and that we all know as CRM, market automation and ERP systems. But what was missing was sort of this ability to control the cross-domain processes across the business. And so you contorted your business to sort of work within the processes of each one of these domains and how they interact, and what integrations they decided to build or not build as part of the native pieces of what they do, or what was possible with a simple iPaaS versus all these other things. And so we got stuck in this mode of like, well, that's how that ERP system does that, and that's what we do in our company now. Well, the reality is most companies, as they grow and scale, want to be able to control their own processes, and that is a thing that we believe ultimately creates what people want. And that's why Syncari, for us and our customers, is much more important than a simple head-end data warehouse or with ETLs or a CDP or a prior generation MDM. It's really about how do we drive the ultimate business value that's part of all this tech jargon that we all talk about sometimes, in order to drive increased revenue and retention, and to drive increased efficiency and accuracy across the business. And that's really what it comes down to for us, is when we talk to our customers and what we're trying to do by all this. It's really, yes, there's a lot of technical stuff, but we're trying to obfuscate that for our customers, create a collaborative platform where both technical folks can work in the same platform as business folks who are trying to automate their processes within the business. And so that's what we're up to. And now I'd like to turn it over to the next slide here well, this is kind of a little joke slide, but Nilesh and I are very close. If you guys don't know, we've spent a lot of time together building this, and obviously Marketo, and we're more than co-founders. I'd say we're best friends and family almost at this point. And so I tend to call him Professor Shastri because he is an amazing mind when it comes to these topics. And I thought it'd be great to learn from him today. And so I labeled this session Gross Data Anatomy 201. So with that, Nilesh, will you take it away?
Thank you, Nick. Thanks, Hassan, for orchestrating all of this. So let's talk a little bit about the evolution of data management and how corporate data strategies are implemented today and have evolved over the last couple of decades or so, right? So as I said, what you see here is not just an evolution chart, but also a strategy maturity model in some ways. It's not really chronological. Some of the patterns that you see here are implemented even today, depending on who you're talking to. So the emergence of data warehouses in the 90s, if my memory serves me right, it ushered a new era of analytics, ingesting data from a variety of systems, or more like dumping data into a warehouse and trying to do analytics and, more importantly, reporting on top of that, right? I remember in a previous organization, the entire data strategy revolved on an in-house database, not your highly scalable columnar on-cloud data warehouse that you see nowadays, just a relational database. And Tableau, right, which is one of the popular reporting and analytics tools. It was great to start with, weekly dumps from a bunch of places and then some reports. But within a year, I vividly remember this, there were 47 reports on product SKU usage and revenue metrics, all similarly named, slightly different, built by different people from 5 different departments, all operating on similar but somewhat different data sets, depending on who took the data dump from what system at what point in time, with slightly different nomenclatures, different ways to standardize stuff. I suppose it served its purpose in a way, and surprisingly enough, it's still a common pattern, right? So you can see all the problems that one might run into when somebody logs into Tableau. And I was logging into Tableau from a product point of view to see what are our most important product SKUs that were generating a lot of revenue. Different reports said different things. So I couldn't really trust any one of them. And I didn't have a way to see which one was a blessed or a certified report, right? So problems. Master data management in the early 2000s kind of tried to solve this dump first and think later mental model with a more structured approach to data. Too much structure, if you remember those days. The concept of a golden record was introduced, and that had some value. But many implementations were nightmarish due to the heavy top-down approach to everything and focus on rigor over value. Right? There are some reasons on why rigor was favored, partially due to the enforcement of the regulatory measures at the time. Sarbanes-Oxley was a thing, but also due to the highly technical nature of the platforms themselves and the kind of expertise that was required to run a project or implement MDMs, right? And then data quality started becoming an integral aspect of MDMs. Standardization and deduplication were and still are a primary goal, right? You might remember the popularity of these data prep tools that would take a table of data and let you wrangle it, in a tabular Excel-like spreadsheet way, and then you could change the quality, look at cardinality, and stuff like that, right? So this specialization of data wrangling was a bottoms-up approach, right? You would give this tool in the hands of the practitioners, and they would generate value immediately. It was simpler in some ways, but still manual table-centric approach to data that was dumped and assumed to be available in some place. Data quality tools in particular, they were good on reporting on the quality of data, but lacked on correcting it, right? They couldn't do anything about it. They would just say, hey, your data is bad and wrong, and that's about it, right? All said and done, even the lofty goals of these master data management systems ended up creating more data silos. You have a golden record stitched together from all your business and technical systems. And what do you do with it? How do you gain value? Often the value stops at reporting. Right? It's just been a common pattern. Most data strategies end up in reporting, and that's it, right? But then some vendors started opening up their MDM platforms via APIs and or partnerships with iPaaS providers. Right? This made sense because good data sitting on its own is not very useful. iPaaS provided a way of distributing this good data back into the other systems, but not without bringing another set of dragons to the table, if you will. Data consistency is a big one. Did my iPaaS override the more recent user entered data? If there are conflicting changes, how is it resolved? Nobody knew. Data just got overwritten and business users cried, and there was a ticket filed somewhere, right? What about deep insights from the reporting tools, right? So reporting was pervasive. So there is some information, some value in those reporting tools, but are they accessible outside the tools? How do business systems access that? Yet another tool, if you remember, the reverse ETL wave, if you will, purportedly tried to solve the problem, but obviously not going anywhere. Another team of engineers and infrastructure to manage this iPaaS, because every new technology brings its own challenges, burdens, another vendor to negotiate with. It's a big hammer, all said and done, right? So the promise of MDM was still mostly unfulfilled in practice, right? And that's why if you talk about MDM with the gray hairs, they'll shudder. They don't like the concept of MDM. They still are having those vivid memories of failures around MDMs, as Nick said, 75%, right? It's a big number. And we are about disrupting that equation in a bit. We'll talk about workflows a little bit. This might sound a little odd because workflows are not talked in the same breath as MDMs often, right? We think of them as orthogonal to master data. And that's why you see a proliferation of million workflow automation tools out there, right? Fairly undifferentiated. They're all very, very similar to each other, trying to solve this, if this, then that kind of processes. There is, of course, a place for that, but we believe that processes can be designed and implemented to be more complete and more accurate if they're built on top of master data instead of being triggered off of one business system. This is a big way, in fact, in how you generate value out of MDMs, right? By freeing them from their very narrow technical space. Their reputation is not that great. They're confined in this very narrow world, and we can break them out of those shackles. These systems also have been historically black boxes for business users. One of our customers always keeps saying, hey, we have an MDM. I don't know how the data gets into MDM. I don't know what processes are followed. All we can do is file tickets, and then magically things seem to happen at some point in time. It's very hard to trust that data because I don't know what's going on. There's no transparency, right? This is a big deal with MDM systems. Business users do not end up trusting data in the MDM systems. So it's kind of the whole point is defeated in some ways, right? The value is always perceived and generated for the business, though, and current MDMs and their implementations neglect this in a big way, right? This is a really big barrier for a successful MDM implementation. All these patterns that you see are deployed in some form and shape today, right? They all come with their own advantages and problems. But how do we attack these problems in today's world, especially with the advent of machine learning in the last decade and generative AI now, right? So there are a bunch of things that has to happen, and autonomous data management systems kind of take advantage of this by making the data management platform intelligent, by treating integrations as a first-class citizen, right? So we talked about iPaaS vendors or change streams to which anybody can register and then make changes, act on those changes from the MDM system, etc. But they're not first class, right? So we need to treat integrations as a first class part of the data management system. We had to elevate metadata, and finally, we had to infuse our collective knowledge about data into the platform. Generative AI plays a big role here because it's all about our collective knowledge and how can that be made use inside a data platform, so the platform can make autonomous decisions on data. So that's basically how we perceive the evolution of the management going on here. I have problems. Okay, there we go. This Syncari started as a data automation platform and evolved into an autonomous data management platform. Now, Syncari is built grounds up to solve all these common problems in a very consistent way. The platform provides a single control plane and a data hub, and this is a recurring theme for ADM, right? Data hub is important, but without a singular control plane that manages what's going on in the data hub, it's fairly useless and the whole thing becomes fragmented. It can sync, unify, govern, enhance, and access data across the board. Each of these terms have a very specific meaning and value proposition. We will get into those things in a later webinar, maybe. But business users can collaborate with their technical counterparts. The transparency is there with ADM. It's no longer a black box. The business users can see what's going on inside ADM. Value generation is the primary focus rather than some technical rigor. Instead of multi-million-dollar, multi-year, chasing the tail black box data projects, we focus on generating value. Okay, so let's talk a bit about what is autonomous data management, right? It's a new term, sparingly used, but let's make it very concrete. We're not going to talk about the baseline capabilities today that any data management platform should have. Things like entity resolution, golden records, deduplication, multi-domain models, APIs. Those are all table stakes, right? We take those things for granted, right? We'll talk about what makes ADMs unique, and the dimensions that you see here are the ones that make ADM unique. Obviously, we will not be able to go into the details of each and every one of these, but these are the facets that we believe will make up ADM, right? And these are the things that you will need to deploy any good data strategy in your organization. We'll probably do another series which goes into the details of every one of these tenets, if you will. So data fabric, I'd like to talk a little bit about this. Data fabric is more an architectural philosophy than anything else towards data. It essentially involves understanding the data systems landscape in your organization, the data flow patterns, the so-called lineage, and building a common ground for what's usable, available, permitted, and correct data, right? So that common plane is really important, and the fabric is all about that. ADM, we believe, must cover a large swath of this landscape, both in terms of data and metadata. For example, metadata and data go hand in hand. When something changes in one of the source systems in terms of metadata, say adding a field or changing the type of that field, or a new object comes into existence, what happens to your master data and how is it impacted, right? That's important. Being able to access data using a standards-based interface like SQL or data frames, even open API kind of interfaces, that's very important, right? All of these things play a big role in what makes an ADM. The next one, obviously, we haven't talked about it a lot, is AI everywhere, right? Gen AI is a big deal nowadays, but the interesting thing about Gen AI is that it's a very powerful technology. It's also very accessible, and more often than not, it's just an API call away, right? So anyone can just integrate some small piece of their core capability into a Gen AI API, and then say that we are AI aware or we are Gen AI enabled, right? The question really becomes, how does one effectively use this in conjunction with all the traditional ML pieces that are already in place and the core product capabilities, right? ADM, in our mind, will seamlessly weave these different sets of AI capabilities into the core platform capabilities itself, right? So how do we think about it? We think about autonomous integrations, right? When you connect systems, they automatically know how and what needs to be mapped and what kind of data transformations must happen between those two specific systems or n number of different systems. Autonomous unification, right? They understand not just the connectivity pieces of it, but they also understand the shape of the data and how they match together. Being intelligent enough to detect when anomalous conditions manifest. What if an error happens? What if you get a piece of data that you cannot process, act on them or alert on them, or automatically make sense of data at hand and provide recommendations, right? In the world of data quality, recommendations are interesting, but can you also automatically act on it on your behalf, right? There's a laundry list of things that this can do. But as you can see, these are all in the background, providing a practical guiding hand rather than just being a technology showcase. So that's how we think about AI everywhere in the context of ADM. Another one, it might look table stakes, but it's really important, and the devil's in the details here. Programmable control plane, right? Each organization is different. People, processes, systems, and culture are all unique. And ADM will do a lot of things out of the box, but also has to accommodate these nuances. Must be customizable to a very high degree when needed. For example, being able to custom transform data as it is streaming through, literally programming it, being able to define org-specific data quality policies programmatically, etc. Right? So this is the core capability in our mind. Finally, we'll talk a bit about federated data entities. Right? MDMs have this problem of being fixated on centralizing data. Often it's impractical to pull all the data from all sources and centralize it, just purely because of the volume of data in some cases or the nature of data, right? An IoT sensor, for example, generates a lot of valuable event data. They're handled by special purpose systems. Do you really want to pull all the data into MDM? No. But is there value in that data? Yes. So an ADM must be able to extract value from such really large data sets in place using virtualization and federation, right? It's not an either or game. Some vendors tout it like that. It's either virtualization or you centralize data. But in our opinion, ADM exploits the virtues of both of these patterns. So that's basically what we're going to cover in this particular slide, and we will go into the details maybe in another webinar. And let's quickly take a look at one of the case studies here, right? So one of our customers is a very large robotics solutions provider. As you know, robotics is a multidisciplinary field, not just on the product solution side of things, but also trickles down to the GTM and customer management side of it, right? This particular company wanted to orchestrate a myriad of different systems, right? Billing, PIM systems, order management, customer information, inventory, reconciliation, and taxation. It was becoming too much for them to operate on them individually. A naive way would be to just deploy multiple custom integration solutions, multiple other solutions around reporting and signal activation and processes, etc. Right? But they choose a more cohesive data model-centric approach to this that provided them with a common view of their customer, including parts ordering, subscription billing, invoices, solutions management, infographics, firmographics, support signals, and taxation and inventory, right? A lot of dimensions and facets to that customer data. So they wanted that world view. With Syncari ADM, they started really small, adding bits and pieces of the customer model, more specifically the financial customer model of it, and then eventually started building processes on top of this model. Right? The streamlining gave them efficiency, ability to respond to changes really quickly, and onboard new business systems as they came in. There are like tons of systems that you see on the picture there that they interoperated seamlessly with the others, right? The Syncari ADM eliminated, they had these manual reconciliation issues. The manual reconciliation is completely gone. It reduced the number of errors in those processes and generally streamlined the financial operations and generated timely financial reporting pieces. More importantly, I'd like to say that it provided them with a common data and process language, that both their business and technical teams could speak. So that's that was very interesting for us to implement with a partner of ours, and that kind of talks to the value of the platform as such.
Nilesh, that was great. Thank you so much for that insight. And we've got a couple of questions. Have you got a chance to take a look at those?
Seems should have made this a little bit longer, Hassan, but yeah, I mean, I'll take the first one if you don't mind.
Yeah, absolutely, Nick.
Yeah, so how to get started with Syncari ADM. So look, as Nilesh talked about, one of the key values we bring is including to this slide that's here on the screen is the elasticity of Syncari for being able to implement solutions in stair step, right, in a roadmap fashion. Meaning that the way we describe it to our customers is the best way to get started with Syncari is, you got to think big. Like, what am I trying to get done? In the case of the robotic company, that was a pretty big project they got themselves into, but they didn't start with big bang and we're going to do all this. They said, you know what, let's tackle this part of the problem first, this part of the problem second, etc. So we kept implementing use case after use case after use case with them until we got the entire solution where they needed it. And now their business is able to do a lot more things that it couldn't do before. And also they're also more accurate in the RMAs and the support efforts that the business is doing. So the way you start with Syncari is think big. What am I trying to get done holistically across my business? Where do I get started? Build a roadmap of how you want to get there and just execute on that roadmap of use cases that you want to go deliver in your company. And we're over time.
Yeah, thanks, Nick.
I'll take the next one. That one's a short one as well, and that will be the final question. So the question is, we have an invested interest in making AI part of our customer experience and employee productivity strategy. We're looking at out-of-the-box AI apps, and those apps may have dependencies on shared data. How and where should I consider applying ADM as part of my AI initiative, right?
Great question.
So we did a proof of concept exactly around this, right? So there was a virtual AI assistant application that had trouble accessing all the data from all those systems, and it was not just a request response assistant, but also an action taking assistant, right? So how ADM was used for them was ADM was the central interface for all the data for that virtual assistant that would be trained on the data that's in the ADM, which was actually a worldwide unified view of their, in that case, students and customers, not customers, but students and their courses and a bunch of other related areas. And then the process automation pieces in the ADM actually provided the unified endpoints for actions as well, right? So if a person interacted with that chatbot and then said, "Hey, do this," the virtual assistant would actually call an API into the ADM, and that would trigger off of a workflow automatically, which was operating on top of that unified data model that they had. So the answers were coming off of the unified data model, and then actions were being taken off on top of the unified data model as well. So that's how you would approach such a system.
Perfect. Nilesh, thank you very much. And I appreciate all the attendees that have joined us.